Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. Fine wine has always been exclusive until now. Provenance is everything, fraud is rampant, and liquidity nearly non-existent. But blockchain is about to uncork a new era. What happens when you blend Chateau Latour with smart contracts? Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, Alfonso de Gaetano, founder of Curated. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Curated, any play on Grand Cru there that I pick up?
Sorry?
Curated, right? Is that a play on Grand Cru, the variety?
Yes,
or
it's a combination of crew and curated.
Yes. Oh, I love it when I
curate the best crew for our clients and to bring them the best wines in the world.
So that is so clever, and I love when I pick up on those little things. Tell me, you spent years at Google leading strategic partnerships across the region. How did it shape your approach to solving problems in an industry as old as fine wine?
Yes, so I'm a big collector for the past 20 years. I've been collecting wines, but also using wines, as a way to connect with people.
My wine, so I have a massive wine collection, and that's not even like, and I keep it very close to me for special occasions. But yeah, I would just want to prove that I'm 100% on board with whatever you're saying.
I found it as an incredible way to connect with executives, both when I was management consulting and when I was at Google, so that you can also talk about topics that people love, that they are very passionate about. And when you are the expert in the room, everyone starts to ask questions, and the connection goes beyond just business. It becomes much more intimate, and intimacy is one of the, key elements of trust. And I felt that through, this, passion, I was able to build much better connection and trust, with clients. At the same time, it became something that I really loved. And you love it because, wine is never the same. Every vintage is different. Understanding, the impact of weather in general on a specific vintage is very complex. Understanding if that wine you can keep it for the long term, or if you should open it and so on. So it brings a lot of curiosity because the object is always different, and that's why so many people are so passionate about wines. And and this is a bit where the passion came. And then I spent 12 years at Google, in different roles, learning about the value that technology can bring, to disrupt very traditional sectors. And I felt it was, a very strong need for technology in a very traditional industry. And that's what we have done.
Why did you feel that? What did you see that others didn't see? Because obviously it was born from your passion. So if you've got a passion for something, you look at something with different eyes. I say you look at it through a different lens. So what did you see that others didn't?
I was extremely frustrated with the way fine wine distribution works. The different element of frustrations were, the first one was access. I feel that the traditional model was not really allowing young and passionate people to have access to these great wines, because the system of traditional distribution works within a location, meaning that if you got the bottles last year, you will get them next year, and so on. That means that all the young collectors, they could only buy these wines in secondary market at crazy prices.
Almost like Ferrari. Almost like Ferrari. If you don't own a Ferrari and you're not on the list, you cannot purchase a Ferrari. You can only go to the second-hand market.
And yeah, and for wines, the problem is that when you buy in secondary markets, every time you move the wine, you actually ruin
Mm.
the wine because wine is a live product. The Ferrari, you can move it, it doesn't change, the car, or you can move, a
Yes.
bag, it doesn't change the bag, but wine is different. So the importance of access is really key for big collectors because provenance of the
Mm.
bottle and the journey of the bottle
Mm.
make a big difference on the quality of the bottle that you're purchasing. So this was the first big frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And in line with that, the second big frustration was that I was buying a lot of bottles because I had no access
Mm.
in auction houses, all the big names and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that you don't know what's the provenance. You even don't know if a bottle is authentic or not.
Mm.
But all the processes that they have to try to certify if a bottle is authentic or not. There were so many scandals.
Mm.
And too often, I was opening wines that were gone, and you don't know if the problem is the bottle that maybe was fake, or if the
Mm.
bottle was traveling too much, so the wine is oxidized and dead. Correct? So this was really a major issue because very often, I was bringing bottles that I bought in auction to friends' places, and I was the guy bringing the great wine.
Mm-hmm.
And then you open the bottle, and the bottle, let's say 1996 Richebourg, was a total disaster. And that's not the kind of experience,
No,
okay, that you want to have.
because
So all of
it
no,
reflects negatively on you as the expert.
but in addition, on you also reflects negatively on the producer.
Mm.
Maybe the producer did a great job, but it's not his fault. So
Mm.
it's important not just for the client. I think it's important across the whole value chain,
Mm.
including the producer that doesn't want to show that his wines are actually not great, but not because he did a poor job, but actually because the way that bottle was treated is not ideal.
Mm.
So how do we fix that? I
Mm.
felt that, using blockchain
Mm.
for authenticity and traceability of every bottle could be an incredible solution to attract all the big collectors. First of all, to access these wines. Second, to have these bottles that are coming directly from the sellers of the producers. And if you are a collector, there is nothing more important than knowing that the bottle for 10 years, 20 years was sitting in the cellar in perfect conditions. And now with one click, you can actually ship it to your place and you can drink the best version of that bottle of that vintage.
Mm.
And this is how we grew, the client base. Now we have 10,000 people plus
Wow.
registered on Rated, and we have already generated with very little marketing more
Mm.
than 55 million euro in revenues since we started in
Gee.
June 2021. And yeah, so, and the most important thing for me is that we are delivering on the promise. If you
Yes.
speak to all the collectors that are our clients,
Mm.
they all say that the bottles that they're opening are unbelievable.
Wow.
It's really the best version of wines of that vintage that they've ever tried. And that's why they trust us and they start to buy more and more, in general from us.
You talked about that access to the top tier wine producers. How did you get access to them? And first of all, and then how did you get them to embrace blockchain technology? Because if I know anything about wine producers, they are very set in their ways, in their old school, in the old school ways.
Yes, no, that's a great question. And I think that's where you have seen a lot of companies failing
Mm.
because of their approach after they try to copy us, and us actually being able so far to do pretty well. So first of all, I had contacts because as a passionate collector, I was traveling to these areas to meet producers,
Mm.
all the time. When I was going to Europe, I was taking a couple of days going to see producer and then traveling back. So I had great connections already in
Mm-hmm.
the wine industry, especially with all the top Burgundy producers that are the most difficult in general to get. And and to be honest, I had to launch in an unfortunate period that is COVID,
Mm.
but that was the only period where I could get this producer to test an alternative way of selling their wines. Because during COVID, the
Mm.
distributor actually stopped buying wines, correct? Because all the restaurants were closed.
Yeah.
So I went to them and I said, what if I build a platform,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that can actually connect you directly with the people that are at home? And what I will do is that I'm not buying and reselling and making all the margin like every traditional distributor does,
Mm-hmm.
but I will sell to clients, I take a commission, and everything else comes back to you. So this way, they were able to actually make much more than what they were actually getting for the same bottles from traditional distributors. Sometimes 50, sometimes 100% more because of this marketplace model. Um, and the other thing, to answer your question about blockchain,
Yes.
we always explain what we are doing and the
Mm.
value, but it was never core as a value proposition to them. The core proposition was to get the bottles in perfect conditions through a marketplace model into the hands of the biggest collectors in the world.
Mm. Mm.
Side note, we
Yeah.
are using blockchain, okay?
But
Because
it's
with blockchain,
it's not the main thing.
decentralized
Yeah.
model,
But it's not the main thing. Yeah.
it's not. It's like, you want to focus on what really matters, 90%, because today there is very little understanding of the value that this kind of technology can bring.
Mm.
But this 10% keeps growing
Yeah.
and will become more and more important, correct? So that's the kind of approach that I chose, okay, in order to, not to confuse, let's say, winemakers about blockchain and the technology and the decentralization and all the rest, correct?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
focus on the business value, but this is important and will become more important over time. That is actually the case.
Yeah, because now with blockchain, you're actually bringing liquidity to an asset that's been historically static. So if I bring liquidity, it means that that product is investable, or I can invest in it. And you said previously that your clients are now opening bottles and saying, these are the best bottles I've ever opened, which is, as an investor, what you want to hear, because you want a high probability that I'm going to see a return on my investment. I don't want to buy an old bottle of wine and then lose all my money. So, how do you see this sort of changing uh, the industry for investing in fine wines?
To be honest, if we don't really focus on investing
Mm,
because I don't like this word, producers don't like that word.
mm,
Wine is made to be consumed. Okay, what we are doing is to
I love it.
preserve the bottles in the best possible way so that when someone will want to consume that
Mm-hmm,
bottle will be in the best possible conditions.
mm-hmm,
Now, what we are doing is that we want to bring liquidity
mm-hmm,
so that if you move from one person to another one and then to another one,
mm,
and then we decide that that bottle needs to be consumed in a top restaurant in Milan or
mm-hmm,
let's say London, there is full provenance, okay, there is
mm-hmm,
full history of what happened to the bottle.
mm-hmm,
And ideally, that bottle never moved from our warehouse that is now in Burgundy, but we are opening smaller warehouses everywhere. And so you know that when you click on provenance, you can see the journey and you trust that Richebourg 1990 came out in 2023.
mm-hmm,
After 6 months, someone maybe passed it to someone else, but the bottle never moved, still in our warehouse.
mm-hmm,
And then someone decided to drink it at home or to drink it, let's say, in a restaurant. And this is the kind of liquidity, okay, that we want to bring, where all
mm,
these steps will be frictionless and where we don't impact the physical bottle by actually moving the wine, but we only move when the bottle is ready to be consumed. Okay, so that's why we never talk about investment, because it's not that you're buying to sell like people do today with traditional auction houses. They start to
Yes.
ship to London, then they send
Yes.
them to Hong Kong. In the meantime, you're ruining the bottle. The
Yes.
ultimate game has to be that this bottle is being drunk, and blockchain, helps us in the process from the moment the bottle comes out from the seller or the producer to the moment the bottle is consumed, so that you have the full journey in the middle.
Amazing. Alfonso, the last question before I let you go, and sort of a funny type of question, but what vintage would you say best represents curated journey so far? If you had to pick a vintage for yourself and where you are with the company at the moment, what would it be?
This year, after after the recent, let's say, challenging months, I will say that maybe it's 21 that
Yeah.
first of all is the vintage when we actually launched Curated.
Yes.
Burgundy, it was a very challenging vintage with a
Yes.
lot of crops that were lost because of weather.
Mm-hmm.
But then in reality, for those very few bottles, that are left,
Mm.
the quality is really incredible.
Uh,
Okay, so now everyone is trying to go and find, these beautiful 21 white Burgundy and so on. So this is a bit where I see ourselves at this stage.
Oh, fantastic. Alfonso, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and connect with you and find out more about Curated, where can they do that?
They can go on www.crewrated.com, and they can find all the information there. They can register for free. We have a membership, it's called Explorer, where
Mm-hmm.
they can register to explore the platform and learn. But the more you learn about the platform, the more possibly you want to upgrade. But the
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing is that for every type of clients, you can actually register, you can buy, and we offered zero storage fees and zero insurance fees until the moment you decide to ship the wines.
Mm.
This is very different from many other, let's
Yes.
say, storage and so on, because you have to pay for storage fees for every case that you have. Then you have to pay for 1%, let's say 1.5%, let's say insurance. All of this with us is actually free, because we want to really improve the liquidity, so allow people to buy, to store, and to decide when and where to ship the bottles without incurring additional fees.
Amazing. And we'll put all the links in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
You're hurting, and girl, I know that you don't deserve it. You know it's wrong, the way he lies. I can see the pain you hide inside. You must be fine with the cheating. Are you okay with him leaving? I know you don't enjoy all the fighting. Are you loving or just surviving? He put you in his cage. Girl, you were born to fly. You need to spread your wings. There's so much more to life. Still hurting from what he did. Love shouldn't be like this. You need to spread your wings. I'll never hurt you again. Love can be so blinding, and breaking up is terrifying. All he does is ignore you. Call my line, I'll be there for you. You can't be fine with the cheating. Are you okay with him leaving? And you can't take all the fighting. Are you loving or just surviving? He put you in his cage. Girl, you were born to fly. You need to spread your wings. There's so much more to life. Still hurting from what he did. Love shouldn't be like this. You need to spread your wings. I'll never hurt you again. How are you okay with average when you deserve so much more? And how are you okay with heartbreak? I won't have you you crying no more. He put you in his cage. Girl, you were born to fly. You need to spread your wings. You need to spread. There's so much more to life. Still hurting from what he did. Love shouldn't be like this. Love shouldn't be like. You need to spread your wings. I'll never hurt you again. Oh no. Don't wanna see you hurt no more. No, no. Don't wanna see you hurt no more.